Hey everybody, I'm John Harris, coming to you live from our digital studio, and this is the Exponential Entrepreneur Academy. There's just a point I want to explain. I get asked a lot about the difference between individuals and organizations when it comes to exponentials. And look, for me it may be different for other people, but an exponential expert is somebody that can 10x their own information. So it's very important, because as AI becomes more disruptive and becomes more prevalent in our society, your individual story, your individual beliefs, the message you have is yours, and you have that patent on that information as such. So as an individual, you can monetize your information. It may be skills you have, it may be in the form of some kind of expertise or experience or interests. There may be an area where people want to learn something, and this really comes down to the knowledge industry. We're part of the information age, and you need an information product is one of the great ways to get into the information age. And that really boils down to the knowledge industry, and then obviously it goes further down into the specific niche on how to. So that's the one side as the individual. The other side is the organization. And here we're talking about platforms, the new types of structures, the new types of jobs that are being invented to cope with that, and whether it's into blockchain and further into AI and how that all unfolds. But those organizations have a different setup. They're going to look at the ideas and the dashboards, and they're going to look up at scaling and how they could do that leveraging technology. So those are slightly different systems. One is as an organization is slightly different to the individual. Though understand this, AI and all technology is drilling down to the individual. It's empowering the individual. Although corporations and companies will always try to usurp as much as they can for themselves, those are getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And at the end of the day, it's going to be the individual that have the full capability of a fully fledged organization through AI. And the individual will compete on equal terms. And in fact, there's a merged line. There's a distinction now between your professional life and your personal life. That is merging. And a lot of people are going to be doing what they want to do, will be closely linked to their way of life, their personal life. And that's some of the things we're going to have to think about as AI becomes more intrusive, and as we get things like perhaps a universal wage and other aspects that we're going to have to look at, as well as morality and so on and so forth. So for today I also wanted to really address a story about, it may not be your fault if you are somewhat cynical when it comes to banks, governments, and corporations. Let's just face it, they don't really want you to be successful, certainly not ultra successful. Take banks. Warren Buffett doesn't need a bank. He has his own capital for expansion and for M&A. So the banks, he doesn't need the banks, and they're definitely not. He's not one of the best clients, although you would think he would be. Banks don't want you to be successful because you can do the same thing. You start to have capital that you can utilize for your own bridging, acquisitions, expansion. So even startup. So that doesn't help them because they're in the business of lending. When it comes to governments, let's face it, with the social media and the discussions that are ongoing, and now especially we're starting to get more critical between mainstream media, what's really going on, the corporations that in the 80s that bought those media companies and their perspective of how they're trying to drive it to their own benefit, and governments, we're becoming more critical. And the more critical thinking we do, the more difficult it gets for governments to manipulate us. So they also don't want us to be ultra successful, they're ultra educated. And when it comes to corporations, well, let's look at some of their track records. In the smoking era, they were talking about saying in the 50s, smoking has no link to cancer, there's nothing to do with it, carry on smoking. Now, it's a different story. Same happened when they spoke about, the carbon footprint and climate change. No. Now they're starting to get in, and the petrol companies have known about this since the 50s. So you can't put millions and millions of tons of the carbon dioxide and monoxides into the atmosphere and think it's not going to have an effect. It's going to have an effect. So these things, they have their own agenda, as we know, big corporations. and there are a lot of conspiracy theories with the cancer and so forth, that they haven't been giving a proper, let's say, prevention of cancer because they're making money with it. But as genomics and things start to get further into it, we're going to get these kind of resolutions and the solutions, and we're going to be able to treat these things. But let's just say for now they have their own agenda, and we need to understand that. So I don't blame you for thinking about that. Look, one of the things we know is that governments will, and military and other people definitely use AI. One of the first things it's going to be used for, which is very unfortunate, I believe, is a weapon. And they will use it as a weapon. And governments will use it to control populations. They will use it, as China's doing, for facial recognition, which will be linked directly to people and their behavior, and a scorecard, a social citizen scorecard, the same as you'd get a credit scorecard. So these are very intrusive, okay? And we'll have to see how that all pans out and just how far that goes. The banks are going to use this where they integrate your payment systems, and they'll be integrating your income, your revenue directly with revenue services. It's going to leave no room at all for error. And we already know the numbers. If you truly look at the numbers that are being asked, they're unsustainable by taxation if you don't have your proper and legitimate claims. So this is the thing that we're going to have to think about. So what's coming up in now, and what I've come to notice is a very interesting thing, and enter Elon Musk. And Elon Musk has created a company, one of the many companies he's created, which is Neuralink. And Neuralink is very intriguing because he's trying to democratize the power of AI. He's trying to link us to the internet. And we're going to give you a video, we're going to give you a link to go and check it out and see what he's doing with his Neuralink, and it's very, very interesting. And they're a long way down the track. And they're also looking for people to come and work with them and help them there. But I dare say you're going to have a serious amount of degrees to do that, but they are offering that. So this is very interesting because now with a universal wage perhaps, and with individuals having the ability to link directly to AI, it gives them the power back to the individual. There's this constant power between the individual and governments and big organizations. So hopefully this is one way that we can semi-protect ourselves from the oligarchs and some of the people that perhaps don't have our best intentions at heart. So without further ado, you'll see below, you're going to see a link, and you'll be able to go there and see a little bit about what's happening with Neuralink, and I think it's very interesting for you. And I, as usual, will see you in the next episode.